All right. You guys all wake up. You guys have now been on Ixalan for about 3 to 4 days, give or take. Um, and you are currently inside the sort of like long open room of the Mosquito Inn. Uh, that is hosted by Chamali, who's currently not here at the moment as it's very early in the day. But you can sort of see um, strong sunlight coming in from the rising sun. Flynn, I assume that you've been awake for a little bit at this point before Motiva wakes up. So if you would like to uh, describe what you think that you would be doing, because I know you generally wake up before everybody else, but I think it's very interesting to ask what you're doing when you're in a different locale, I suppose.
I feel like she's gonna start out the day kind of writing in her journal everything that they know. I feel like that's something that's usually like a nighttime routine, but as they are gathering more and more info, uh she's and like burning the midnight oil, so to speak. She's started doing this like in the mornings.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Uh,
Uh
yeah.
oh, I was gonna say she's also from now on checking her things every morning.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think that's very fun and very reasonable. Hold on, I'll do that check for you. You go through your bag pretty meticulously, kind of going over those snags that you remember from that first morning. And everything seems in order. So that is, it's a relief, but I still imagine it's like, it sticks out as weird to you. You know what I mean? I feel like every time you do it, you just remember that first time and how it was very surreal.
Yeah. At this point, she's doing it just to do it because she doesn't want to have a repeat of that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Something that you would actually note of, like something that might interest you, Flynn, is that you're the first person to wake up from trancing, as your friends, but then also the other guests. None of them are like elves, right? Uh, so you kind of get up, and nobody seems to notice that you're burning the midnight oil. Nobody cares about why you buy these in rooms. You know what I mean? Or these beds anyway. But you actually notice that Ashan gets up relatively early when the other two are still like awake and looks to be sort of getting ready for the day already, like a good couple hours before you know that the other two are slated to wake up. He doesn't look like he's particularly sneaking, but I think that is something of note to you.
Early bird.
Did you say that to him? Sorry,
I
it was
wasn't
half.
intending to, but I think it would be really funny to Flynn like watching him just like go about doing whatever he's doing while she's writing in her journal, and then just muttering under her breath as she writes "early bird."
I do too. Because you said it in her accent, I was like, that seems like something Flynn would say. I think Ashan kind of like huffs a noise and like almost like lazily picks up his little crossbody bag and just kind of like looks over at you and then walks over to you and like I think that he's just like, speak for yourself, and then immediately goes to put his face in your book to read what you were writing down, like, and to get in the way of you doing it.
I feel like he does that, and Flynn starts like poking at like his cheek or something with the pen that she's writing with.
No, I don't think he would bite it, but I think he looks like he's about to bite it out of your hand. But he thinks better of it and kind of goes to stand up and says, well, since you're awake, I'm going to go take a walk. I'll be back in a little bit.
Oh, can I come with you?
You can't see the expression I'm making, but it's the expression Ashan makes. He immediately kind of like makes an expression and says, "Why?"
Partly buddy system, partly because I want to see more of the city.
Thought we established that I don't need to be a part of the buddy system.
Well, what if I want to see the city so bad that I end up going off on my own? I need a buddy.
Yeah, you're troublesome like that. I think... Now, I have a fun question for you. So you have the hat of disguise, right?
Yes.
So it's like a hat, and that makes it an illusion on top of your actual appearance, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. He's gonna grab and pinch the tip of your ear and like yank on it a little bit to be like playfully annoying.
So sorry to the people sleeping here. She does make like an affronted squeak. And she like slaps his like wrist. It's like, don't just grab it like that.
Well, come on if you want to come see the city. Or I'll start finding other body parts to start being annoying and poking at.
Okay. She gets up and like grabs her bags.
Awesome. He does wait for you. And he waits to kind of walk with you around the city. And as you guys kind of go, you recall that he was basically by himself the entire time yesterday. And he had brought back things while you guys were getting information. And so as you are walking with him, he seems to already have a little bit of the lay of the land in this situation. There are still like these moments where like you're very perceptive, right? So I think this is something that you can actually pick up on because you know Ashan. You guys are getting to the point where you know certain NPCs that sometimes you can pick up on why people do things or like the minutiae of their actions naturally. And there is a sort of effortless confidence to how Ashan moves through a city and moves around people that you can tell is part him knowing things from his excursion yesterday, and the other half of sometimes if you just act like you know what you're doing and you keep quiet and you're looking around, it gets you through a lot of situations, and it kind of lets you blend into an urban landscape, which is something very fascinating about Ashan. Ashan is very good at survival in a landscape, but also in urban environments, because he comes from a very strongly urban settlement. And I think that's something that you kind of pick up on your walk with him. Since you are now with him on this walk, I have to ask, is there any sort of direction or goals to your walk around? Because if you move separately from him, he will adjust to go with you. But if you're also not doing anything, he doesn't like to stand still very often. So it's kind of like up to you if you think you are splitting off and changing the trajectory of this walk, or if you're just following him. Especially because you haven't seen a lot of the city yet.
Yes, I think she's kind of just following him, but she's like keeping an eye out for anything like notable.
Yeah, you definitely can. You see that mostly what he is trying to do is kind of follow. There's this sort of tiered architecture to this city, and it's a bit difficult to describe because not only is it tiered, but also the center of this city is like a fishbowl almost. And surrounding the city, as you guys kind of go up farther and farther into the city center proper, you can see sort of like the lakes and the little rivers and streams that kind of surround this city. But the number one thing of note that I think you pick up is the same thing that you saw when you were boating into Otepec at first, and it's sort of the the three huge structures on the edges of this city. And they're these sort of big, huge tiered pyramids that are made of this sort of like, it's this golden like eggshell kind of brick. But it's different than the architecture of the rest of the city because they're inlaid with this sort of like colorful, it could be lacquered wood, it could be gemstone, but it has like a sheen to it, but they're brightly colored. And those three colors are, if I can find them. Sorry, I should have had this prepared.
You do okay. I think soon after they have set out on their walk, she's actually gonna send a text to Motiva just in case she wakes up before they get back.
That's so fair. Feel free to send that text while I get it. Awesome. So the three colors, each one has a different one. There is a one that is sort of this bright burnish orange. There is one that is sort of like a metallic silver. And then the last one is this sort of like deep red. And that's the accent on each one of these buildings, which makes you have the assumption that all three of them are different in some capacity. And as a fun reminder, because you got this in the last session, and I didn't have a chance to actually tell you about it after the last session and before this, you got a book about the prominent religion of the Sun Empire.
That's right!
Which means I get to tell you information here, and then it can be on recording, so for people to listen to later if you'd like. So feel free to take some notes. It's going to be me just kind of giving you a big, long talk about it. But you recognize these colors from that book. So the prominent religion in the Sun Empire is a sun-based religion. It is specifically known as the godmother Chimil. And it basically... Yes, sorry. Oh, that's in the text. No, I can't do it in the text.
God coming into our text chain.
This is how it's stylized. And it's the sun, right? She is renowned specifically as she is renowned specifically for her threefold light. Which is also referred to as the threefold sun, depending on how people are referring to it. It's like how a deity has multiple titles or names. Here is specifically the symbol that you see with the colors that I mentioned. And I have information about all three, the threefold light, basically, because there is I'm gonna read this all off and then I'll give you spellings afterwards. But the first one is Kinjali, also known as the Wakening Sun, which is specifically the deity who created humans from clay, and is associated with order, structure, and the rainy season. It is also the sort of patron of the Holy Family in the Sun Empire, because the Sun Empire relies on a divine bloodline as their leadership. The next one is Tilonali, known as the Burning Sun, who is associated with ferocity, fire, and passion. as well as anger and love, and the hot season. And the last one is Ixali, also known as the Verdant Sun, who fosters growth in all things and is associated with fertility, community, and the cold season, as well as the patron of the Sun Empire's dead, basically. Basically, sanctified dead are said to be returned to Ixali's embrace. And now I'll get you all of those spellings really quick. We got this one. We got this one. And then we got this one. And that is sort of the basis of the religion in the Sun Empire. And it is sort of like a monotheist empire, basically. It's only loosely like a theocracy, but only through that sort of divine bloodline idea, you know. Technically, priests and the clergy don't make any real decisions. And something that was mentioned to you by Lucky when you were kind of asking, like, oh, is there anything I should be aware of in, like, Otepec? This is a very religious city, basically.
Yes.
So you think that if those buildings are not temples, they have to at least be dedicated to these aspects of Chimila in some way.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that affects your interest at all in where you're walking, but I do know that Sean does not look like he's going toward those buildings in particular. It honestly seems that it looks like he is going specifically on a walk, but kind of in the middle of the walk, he is actually going to, like, stop you and, like, kind of look at you for a minute.
Yes.
I'm just going to come out with it. I am going to ask you to stay right here for like 10 minutes.
Just gonna, like, squint at him. Why?
Because I'll be right back.
But where will you be?
Not where Flynn eyes can look at me, I'll say that.
And why don't you want Felinize to be looking at you?
Because it would be weird.
Are you going to the bathroom?
Let's call it that. And he's gonna turn around and start walking away.
She's following him.
He turns around and he does this very particular motion with his hands where it almost looks like he's like doing a motion in between about to grab your shoulders and about to grab your neck, where it's like took you on your little trip. You can't just let me go climb a building for a minute.
Well, if you had just said that in the first place. What building are you climbing?
Probably that one. And he goes to point at one that's like, all of the buildings in Otepec are kind of small, but this one's about 4 stories, which is actually notably taller than a lot of buildings. Most buildings are only about 1 to 2 stories. And he says, well, knowing you, I thought it would just make you be like, oh, well, let me climb up with you. And I'm not setting you up for a climbing kit for 10 minutes of me sitting somewhere tall.
Well, first of all, I don't sound like that.
Oh, you don't?
Shush. You can do your climbing thing. I'll stay here.
Okay. Don't wander off. Buddy system, remember?
Buddy system. I'll stay right on this block.
Okay. If you want to go into any of the buildings, you can. That's fine. He turns around, like, as he's about to walk away to, like, look at you for a minute. And then he goes to... Sorry, go ahead.
Like I say, I like to imagine when he turns around, she does a little shooing motion. Go on.
Awesome, and you're gonna watch him basically free climb up this building, which is actually kind of fascinating. I think Ashan's rock climbing is very fast-paced but skilled. Do you have any particular way that you spend these 10 minutes where you are put into timeout, basically?
I feel like she's gonna take this opportunity to kind of just start talking to people and asking if they've seen a lady.
Yeah, that's definitely fine. I think that's on the forefront of her mind. Let me go ahead and roll me diplomacy.
Wait, also, yeah, before I forget, I wanted to double check something.
Oh, yes. We got rules.
Okay, so for prestidigitation,
Yes.
specifically make, where it says you can make a temporary object.
Okay.
Could I make like a tiny little picture or painting of Eleni to have something to show people?
Oh, let me see. That could be fascinating.
It says the object looks crude and artificial, so I can't imagine it would be of good quality, but like...
But, like, if it's just, like, an image, or even, like, you molding, like, essentially magic clay to look like Eleni, I still think could be slapped. I'm gonna look really quick. Yeah, that's a way that a lot of people actually tend to use it.
Slay!
I also have found out that most DMs allow prestidigitation to, at the very least, heat something to about 100 degrees, because that would make it warm to a human body.
Wow!
Yeah, so it can't cook things, but you can reheat your coffee. Pretty slay.
Yay!
I just love seeing what other DMs do with that sort of thing. It's really fun. But you definitely can. Do you so for flavor, do you think it's like a 3D little situation, or do you think maybe it's almost like a etch a sketch situation?
I think having a little 3D thing would be fun, would be cool.
I think so as well. I like the idea that it's like this almost like, I keep imagining it blue for some reason, because magic is a very blue thing to me. So the idea that it's almost like, it's a little bit see-through, but it's like this like amorphous, like congealed jelly almost. That's like this pale blue that you've made to look like Eleni's face, and I think that's really cool to me. If you ever want to have it look particularly fucky in the future, I would love for you to think about it. But yeah, you go around that. And what was your diplomacy roll?
Oh, let me...
I'll
got
say.
distracted by looking at the spell!
It's okay, we both got distracted. I'm very excited. Presto is really a good spell. I love Presto.
9. 27!
27. Okay. All right. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna do something.
Ooh.
You start asking around, and you get I don't want to say that like your time doing this particular tactic has been disheartening, but you also haven't really gotten any proper feedback necessarily, right?
Mhm.
Uh, but you do like you get a lot of the same sort of responses where some people look at them and they're like, oh, I haven't seen a person like this, or like you get to the point where like they also would be blue like this, and everybody's like, oh, merfolk, or like, oh, I've never, like, that sort of thing. Like there's a lot of like back and forth. Something that you would pick up from this conversation and conversations previously is that you don't think that this plane has like any sort of like presence of like elemental creatures, right? Because too many people now have acted like that as an outlandish concept. So that's a piece of information for you that honestly helps you realize that Eleni sticks out even more than originally thought, right? Um how do I word this thing that I want to happen? Cuz you got a really interesting diplomacy roll there. You walk up to a woman, and she has this sort of uh, as most of the people that you've encountered, she's sort of dark skinned and has her hair sort of like in this ponytail, dressed very casually, not really standing out. You pass this sort of like stall selling trinkets in the streets. And you've just been kind of going up and grabbing people to like ask this question. And you come up to her and you kind of, I would love, what do you think is like your spiel for this? Do you think you just ask, oh, have you seen this person? What kind of thing do you say to these people generally when you're doing this?
I feel like she kind of pops up with like a, oh, excuse me, I'm looking for someone. Have you seen this person before? And then showing them a lady.
You see that she kind of looks over it, and she kind of gives you another look that's kind of like a normal thing in these conversations, where she looks like a little sad for you. It's not exactly pity, but it's definitely a sympathy. As she looks over your display and says, no, I can't quite say that I have. Where were they last seen? Did you?
Uh,
Where did you lose them?
we last saw them near a river.
I'm sorry. That was an inappropriate response. You just throw a rock around here and you hit a river. I'm realizing.
Yes. It's made things a bit difficult.
um, you see that she gives you kind of a curious look at, and she says, I feel like manners dictates, or that I wish that I could say more, but I'm really not sure. I wish I could help you more.
If. Give me 1 second. She's gonna say, if you see them or if you hear anything, if you could please pass the word to Shamali at the Mosquito Inn.
I've never been, but you always can find somebody who knows somebody. I'm sure that if I put my nose to the grindstone, I could find it. But I will. Um, would you actually This sounds silly. I'm sure you're very pressed for time. If you're willing to wait a minute, uh, I could sketch something down for my own memory.
Oh, yes, please.
Uh, yeah. And since you can sustain Presto and there's no sort of like maximum duration, uh, you can kind of sit here for maybe like a minute or two as she kind of like will roughly sketch out something. You see that she specifically takes out like I don't want to say a charcoal pencil because that sounds extremely modern, but the equivalent of like a charcoal pencil, one that's not super messy, um, to like sort of sketch something out on the inside of a book that she kind of like pulls out of her pack. Um, Uh, and she kind of takes it and she nods at you and says, "I'll keep an eye out if I buy any more rivers."
Thank you.
But good luck. I can I can tell they're important to you. So good luck.
She just gives a nod and is immediately going to talk to more people and ask more.
Yeah, 100%. And you do that. But that's kind of the only interaction you have of note. That's your reward for getting a critical.
Woo! Getting the word out, getting the word out.
You are getting the word out, and you're getting more people on the case. And you kind of do that, but you stay pretty strongly to this block. So after about 10 minutes, maybe a couple minutes more, Ashawn isn't super on time as a person. You see that he kind of walks up to you and kind of goes to like, I say grab, and that sounds rude, but I think that he goes to kind of like firmly take your elbow, probably as you're about to kind of hurry over to like another group of people, and he kind of just like motions his chin and says, "Come on, let's go see if the others woke up.
Yes.
We got time." And he is actually going to basically walk you directly back to the inn, specifically with his hand still on your arm, or almost like maybe even a hand pushing on your lower back. Not like pushing you forward, but like guiding you back.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh.
Yes?
Flynn is also going to ask him if he saw anything while he was up there.
You see that this pause is actually in character as he takes a minute to respond. And he says, "I should wait to mention it till I can tell the other two also. Come
on." She speeds up her gait a little bit.
Yeah. So let's cut on back to Motiva and Nefei at the inn. I'll actually say that this seems like it actually probably took a decent amount of time because they walked pretty far into the city. So Motiva, you wake up. You wake up a little bit before Nefei, and you have a notification on your phone.
Motiva would like crusty eye look at the notification and like squint at it and just oh okay. And she would answer it.
Nice.
And then she would like look over and she would see Nefei and just say, "The others will be back soon."
Nefei is not awake yet.
Oh.
I'm sorry, you woke up before Nefei.
I think that's kind of funny. Like imagining her just being like, "Oh, the others are." And she like goes to quietly stand up. And I think that Motiva is going to get dressed, get ready. And the thing is that the buddy system is real. She's not going to leave Nefei.
No, that's totally fine. I definitely didn't think that you were. I mostly just wanted to give you a chance to like talk about what you think your morning looked like.
Very chill, honestly. I think that Motiva is. She has a notebook. I imagine that Motiva is like writing out like a shopping list for real. And it is mostly just things like we should probably get like comforters or quilts, pillows for sitting on, maybe like nets and such. Go ahead.
Definitely. I will say, Ashan did buy you guys a net.
I know.
That's fair.
I just meant that as like filler. No, it's okay. I just meant that as like filler. Like she's generally just trying to be like, how do I make this boat a home?
Oh no, definitely. I think it's very cute, and definitely if you wanted to get more, to again kind of make it like put on the sides or make it look cool, or just like to have more, because like a net isn't technically that big. Then I definitely love the idea that she is like, how do I make this nice and refreshing for when we are on the water?
I definitely think that like she's kind of just like sitting there, and I imagine there's like a place to wash up. She definitely stops by there.
Actually, that's a good question. 1 second. Awesome. Slay. So, the place to wash up actually would be a little building basically in the, like sort of like, not connected to, but like right beside this building. And it's basically like a small bathhouse. It's not like a public bathhouse, but it'll be like specifically like a bathhouse that looks like big enough for like maybe like 4 or 5 people to be in at one time. Yeah, so basically that's the flavor for you whenever you go and you sort of like wash up, and that sort of thing.
She's got like a bucket and a ladle, and she's just like washing.
It steams up really nice on the clay.
I imagine she like has an illusion going so that her back doesn't show through.
Just in case anybody comes in. I definitely think that that's a good idea. You probably run in to a person or two, but they're probably not going the whole mile. It's probably people coming in to like wash their face and that sort of thing, getting ready for the day.
Yeah. I will say, not to be a bitch.
Yeah.
I do think that if she comes back and Nefei isn't awake, she's going to wake up Nefei.
No, that's definitely fair. I think by the time you're done washing up, I do think that Nefei wakes up. I just think Nefei isn't like Nefei is industrious, but I don't think that always translates as wakes up at dawn, right? I think Nefei is more of a stays up kind of late, kind of industrious. But she's sort of getting up and getting her stuff together, sort of sorting out her outfit, which is layers upon layers upon layers. You know how it goes. And she goes to kind of grunt out a good morning. Not particularly unfriendly, but like sort of still in the early moments of being half asleep.
Motiva is going to share the text and just say like, Flynn and Ashan have run off.
Good enough. I figured that people might have, when I woke up and nobody was here, I figured that they just ducked out for their own things. So we'll wait around till they come back.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, I thought you were just gonna make her end off on good, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, good riddance. But yeah, I think she kind of just gets ready, looks over her own things. I don't know if she is particularly talkative in this moment, but if you talk to her, I don't think that she is opposed to the idea of talking to you.
I think Motiva is like mildly going to be talking and just being like, "Hey, you seem like a very like comfort loving person. Is there anything that you want or you think you need for comfort while we're on this trip?"
That's a good question for Nefei. I think that for Flavor, also while you're having this conversation, I think that she's actually going to like be putting on like her beard and hair oil because I don't think she did it last night. Kind of like haphazardly doing her hair care routine, you know. But I think that she's gonna kind of think about it and say, honestly, we could probably get a sort of receptacle, like a to use like as a wash basin, I guess. It's a bit demoralizing to lean out if we need water for something and stick our hands in the raw river water.
We can do that.
If we're gonna be cooking too, I just think that it would be something useful. And she's gonna kind of like look over your list and see that you got like pillows and just linens in general, and say that'll do a lot to make a place homely. I think this is gonna be like me saying this technically out of how she would say it, but I think something that she illustrates to you is that to her, I think things that would simulate a home would help. So like trying to recreate things that we associate with doing things at home. So like if we're going to be having cookware, then we definitely need like dishes. You know what I mean? If we're going to be having meals, we should also like have like it should be less like we are camping and more like we are like I don't want to say like civilized, you know what I mean, but like eating like how we normally would. Would probably go the farthest to feeling comfortable and homely. And she would say that like that's not really like a requirement, but if that's what you're trying to go for, I think that will go really far with what you want to.
I'm just trying to make sure that everybody is comfortable for the long term. I don't think any of us were built for boating.
No, definitely not. I'm sure more than half of us would sink like a rock. But oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say more right than she knows.
She's gonna say like, but I think it's good to try, even if we can't, you know.
That's the point. We're gonna have to argue with Ashawn a little bit, but that's normal.
Of course we were. He's a man.
He got us a waffle iron.
It's cute. I can say
You can
that.
make shapes. I can make shapes with it.
It is homely.
She looks a little bit fond for how much she's complaining. I want to mention she's annoying.
She's definitely really fond. I think that Nefei is like doing that thing where it's like she wants to complain and call it stupid, but she's intentionally being like, I guess it's not useless, you know? Who am I to judge?
Who am I to judge?
But I think hold on. I have to be rolling for things. I think that there is this moment between the both of you where, like, for a second you don't realize it until you do, that you are not being as subtle as you might think about that particular affectation. I think that you get the feeling that she has clocked that you're being a sappy fuck, and you know that she has clocked you, but she doesn't say anything.
She's fine with it.
That's totally fine. You guys kind of sit
She's
there.
just a girl in love.
She is in love. But yeah, you guys kind of spend your morning doing that, and Nefei sometimes ducks out, but it's mostly to go to the little bathhouse next door, and then to come back, and then she has to get up because she has to do something else in the bathhouse, and then she comes back. But she's mostly set to rights, as this is the first time that you guys haven't slept on a floor or the boat in a couple days.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But I'll say that that's about whenever Ashan and Falin come to walk in. And you see, Falin, you're still kind of like hot stepping it a little bit, but Ashan is walking with this almost like, I don't want to say a forced nonchalance, but like very little things make Ashan like hot step it or rush. So he's walking about at the speed that he normally would. And he comes up to the group and sees both of the Gorals talking, and he's just gonna kind of go, hey, and he's gonna set down his stuff and sit on the bed that he paid for, and I think he's gonna open with saying, you guys ready to go? What's the lowdown today? And kind of looks between Motiva and Falin. Since you're the PCs.
I feel like once we got to the inn, Flynn was actually like looking at him like expectantly, and then he says that, and then she just like squints her eyes at him. Just, they're going to tell us what you saw.
What?
He saw something, but he said he wanted to wait until we could all hear.
Oh, that. And you see he goes to kind of like rub at his jaw a bit, and he goes to kind of like look out the window, and he's gonna just kind of say point blank, almost no inflection, Eleni's here.
What? What? Where?
Specifics are a little hazy, but somewhere on this continent, I'd say it's talking to people around here is confusing because Ixalan is the plane, but it's also the continent, and there's other places that aren't the continent. But I know they're here.
How did
Motiva's jaws look tight.
I mean, you saw that from the building?
And you see that he's starting to look annoyed having to explain himself, which kind of gives you some wheels turning on why he wanted to be alone, right? And he goes to kind of gesture a bit at Motiva and says, no, I didn't see them, but I sense them. And Nefei is kind of like giving a very dubious expression over at Ashan, and he just kind of like throws up a hand and says, look, it's the same way I could tell that Eleni wasn't on Zendikar.
I could just planeswalker magic.
If it is or it isn't, I don't know. But I started doing it when we started looking for Eleni. And I'm fairly confident that they're here. You don't have to believe me if you don't want to, but it definitely is different than it was on Zendikar.
Motiva's going to begin Aura Sight.
Okay. What does that do again? I should learn that.
She's generally, because you can assess a target's physical health or any afflictions, she's specifically looking for that.
Oh, okay, that's pretty good. Okay, Slay. Give me an occultism check.
Oh, it's a DM occultism check.
Oh, you're so right. I'm sorry, I didn't see that next to it, but you're right. It has a secret tag. I'll do it.
Haha, yeah.
Very cool that Aurasight can also detect lies outright. It's a lot better than just sense motive. That's really cool.
Yes. I can sense all of the following: his apparent attitude, his apparent emotional state, his physical health, and if versus a occultism check, any secret or hidden conditions or affliction. That's good for detecting charming. Fun fact, that's usually why people take it.
Yeah, it's really good for charm. That's like the thing. 1 second. Do you guys know? There we go. I had to find the attitude slider.
No, I don't know the attitude slider because Kingmaker doesn't use it.
No, it's okay. The attitude slider is really weird. I was basically just trying to see if there was one above friendly, which there isn't. So I'm gonna give this, and then we're gonna have to pause to get our groceries because they actually just finished getting delivered. But I'll leave you off with this information. Ashan's current apparent attitude towards y'all is friendly. If it could go higher than friendly, it would be. You know that Ashan is your ride or die. Apparent emotional state. You're picking up a lot of feelings right now from Ashan, where there is sort of this like honed in focus at first, but there's also this kind of skittering of frustration. General assessment of the target's physical health. And conditions are afflictions. There is this sort of really interesting thread that you get from what you know about Ashan and then what you are seeing from this. You're using Aurasight not just on a random stranger where you can get broad strokes, but you're using it on somebody that you know intimately well. You can tell that he is healthy and is not suffering from any mechanical conditions or afflictions, except for the sort of hairline crack, and this sort of like strange energy that you are picking up is his sort of nerve condition. Which actually gives you a very interesting piece of information that it could have actually affected things like his ether and his magic, right? It is not a magical condition, but there is sort of that really interesting overlap of what part of your brain is fully physical and what part of your brain affects magic, you know? So that's something you pick up. And something that you actually also pick up is that he is being 100% truthful. There is nothing about his appearance or outward facade that looks like he is trying to sidestep information or mislead you. And you also can tell that he does not doubt his feeling on this. There is a sort of firm confidence in what he is saying. But you do think that him being dodgy about how he knows is more just an embarrassment. You know what I mean? It's hard to describe.
Okay.
And with that, I will pause and we will go get our groceries and we'll come back. So stew on that a little bit. Awesome. Okay, and we're back. Motiva, you just did Aurasight. So you have all this information that Nefei and Flynn are not privy to. What do you do with it?
Breathe and blink, and she just like thanks for saying. And she's okay. So you didn't like kill yourself doing this. That's good.
No, I told you the last time we talked about it. It's very low intensive as far as magic goes. I've done worse.
Well, you say that, but every other person I know is just like, oh yeah, it's slow intense magic, and then they almost fucking die doing it because they're just like, it's just nothing. It's just a little bit of light work. Just jogging the memory.
My intro to sky pirating on Zendikar, the minute they found out I could do lithomancy, was cut entire swaths of ruins in half. I'm fine.
Pussy. Sorry, was that not funny?
No, it was hilarious.
Tanini, was that not funny?
I just don't know how to respond to it.
Okay, that's fine. I'll retcon Motiva saying that. She just nods and says, like, okay. Okay. And she looks to Flynn and Faye and she says, okay, we have confirmation. Yay!
Yes, it is. It is good to have it narrowed down.
So, I'll reiterate the question. What's the plan? I mostly just wanted to get that out of the way. I didn't have a chance yesterday because I was the errand boy.
Very good, errand boy. Go ahead.
Initially, I was going to ask to spend more of today asking around the city again. But after asking people today, there was a very nice woman who drew Eleni, and I think that will help get the word out. I think it would be good to start making our way down the rivers and visiting the places on the map. On our way out of the city, though, I will probably be slow and ask more people and maybe try to spread the word more.
Who?
There is just a nice lady. She was at a stall.
What did this lady look like?
Dark skin, ponytail. She was selling trinkets.
She was looking at trinkets that were being sold.
Oh, looking at trinkets.
Did you get this lady's name?
No, but I asked that if she hears anything, that she go to Chamali at this inn.
Motiva sucks on her teeth and she says, okay. Well, that's scary.
Why?
A couple of things. In my opinion, we don't know who that is. Second, and third, somebody realizing that someone not of this world is here, and that person could have been a pirate. With a description. For all we know, they might try to bribe us into giving them up.
Forgive me, I assumed we were aware of risks like that when we talked about asking around the city.
I'm just rather worried about somebody having a more permanent method of looking.
I think Nefei actually speaks up and kind of... She looks like she thinks about what she's going to say for a second before speaking up and says, I don't know if I share the same worry if they're going to try to use it to get at us. I mean, we just don't let them. And if it's a worry of just them knowing that people like us exist, I mean, our innkeeper knows what a planeswalker is. Maybe I'm just not following your worry, but
I can understand where you are coming from. I do not feel. I think it is just one of those things that's another risk added on to the mountain of risks we are already taking.
And you didn't get this person's name.
No, I can attempt to find them.
I want to mention, Motiva's like hand is in her mouth. I am not me, Ashai. I am not saying that Motiva's paranoia is entirely valid. I'm saying this out of character. Her like hand is in her mouth and her hair is like kind of like flicking around as she's like wildly like looking around. And she's, well, we can look around. I think it would make me feel more comfortable to know at all times everybody who has this information.
Well, we are in a bit of a pickle because the Fae and I told an entire tavern yesterday. And I didn't get any names.
I wanted to say this a minute ago, but I wanted to make sure that Ash got to speak as Motiva again first. I think the longer and longer that Motiva is like stressed or like thinking of responses, like Ashan has probably already put like a hand on like the spot on her back between her shoulder blades, and is kind of like pushing down on them. I don't know how to describe it, but like I feel like it's almost like he is like grounding her to where she's sitting on the bed, or like keeping her down. Does that make sense? I don't know how to describe it. It sounds more intense when I explain it that way, but I hope it makes sense. Grounding.
Yeah, it's grounding.
Grounding.
Yeah.
She will sit. Her eyes are bulging out of her head.
Well, Ashan is gonna kind of speak up and drawl out, and like look around this kind of group, each with their own like sort of opinions, views on this sort of situation, and kind of sighs and says, "Well, then." Think about what we can change and not worry about what we can't. Cat's out of the bag. We've already been asking around. If you're worried about even pirates, we've been doing this since Washed Up.
I'm just, if there's a lot of planeswalkers here, what if one of them follows us back?
That is a worry. We don't really have concrete information on how many planeswalkers are on each plane, or even how many are from each plane. And new ones can wake up at any time. That's an issue, even back on Ravnica. It's an issue on Strixhaven, if we're honest. No one has to tell us that they're planeswalkers, just like we lie.
Mochiva's like hand rubs down her face and she says, I'm very happy for you, Flynn. Don't let my paranoia get in the way of your joy. If there's more people looking and we have confirmation that Eleni is on the continent, then that's good news.
in the future, when I ask around for Eleni, I will get people's names.
No, you. Just. I don't know. And she kind of like leans back on the bed, and she says, "So, Philin, we have confirmation that Eleni is on the continent. Do you feel comfortable in saying that we have searched the city enough for them, and that we should move on?"
At least for now.
Okay. Luckily, we've been here, so if we hear any news, you and me both have magics to take us back to the city. Or at least give us a quick route.
Yes.
What are you rolling, devil?
Motiva.
Hmm.
You're already a bit keyed up right now. Definitely not negating how Fulin must feel in this situation, right? But you're very keyed up right now. There is almost a feeling that you are now like suddenly aware how big this city is and how many people could be in it. What kind of people could be in it. So you're the first to notice when something perhaps a little strange happens. Quickly followed by Philin. But you see this inn doesn't really have like a closed door situation. It's left mostly open, especially during sunlight hours, to let foot traffic in, let in the air. And you kind of see out of the corner of your eye as you flop back on the bed, something kind of like dart into the building. And it sort of like gleams for a second before going dull. And then that movement keeps going as it rapidly approaches your location. And that's when you notice it, Philin. As you notice a very small thing. I wouldn't say it's tiny, I would say it's small. Let me get a picture of it. Because at first you see it and you're like, it's a raptor. But it looks wrong. Because you can partially see through it. Let me get this image as one of these things walks right up
Whoa.
to your bed. And it looks like it's holding something in its mouth.
What the fuck?
And it does this thing where it waits, not particularly in front of any particular person after it runs and it stops. But like the longer nothing happens, it starts to like pace and circle the area that you're in because it's the most people dense.
Flood's gonna get up and try to like reach for the thing in its mouth.
The minute you move closer to it, it definitely stops and it goes to like look at you. And you can tell that this thing is made of metal. And as you go to reach for its mouth, it obligingly opens its mouth. And you pull out a folded piece of paper. It's kind of almost like intricately folded.
Can I read aura on this thing real quick?
Yeah. 1 second. That's the spell Ash told you to pick up. Ash was telling me, told you to get it up. That takes a minute, right?
Yeah.
You can definitely do it. I will say, the minute you take it out of its mouth, this thing leaves.
Oh.
And you see, Nefei, jolts up from where she's sitting, and she kind of almost goes to yell, "Hey!" And, like, she goes to, like, follow it, but it's, like, out the door before she can even get past the beds.
Man.
Mativa, I would like to know what you're doing.
Benicadec. I think she looks like she's ready to start running off to chase it, and then she's just like, oh, I don't have to do that. And she makes Sister chase after it.
Okay, awesome. How far do you have it be chased?
Up until Empathy Link would end, which is 1 mile.
1 mile? Okay, slay. 1 second. I have to look something up really quick. Sorry, I'm cross-referencing how far a mile would be in a city. Okay, so ain't shit. All right. Slay. So, you definitely do have Sister follow it. It is pretty fast. I will, say that before it gets anywhere of note, or before the empathy link ends, Felin's spell would pop, so I'm gonna describe that first and then finish that description. Is that okay?
Yes.
Slat. Okay, cool.
Always.
Awesome. So... Read aura. I gotta look at it again. I literally just looked at it 2 seconds ago.
Oh,
yeah.
Since it's heightened, can I also include the paper in this?
Ooh, that's a very. I thought you were casting it on the paper. Do you want to do it on the paper and that thing?
Yeah.
Oh, slay. We can definitely do that. 1 second. So, let's go. So, first off, paper, no. Right? I'll say that. That's the thing you get second. But I'll say that you managed to get this thing before it, like, fully leaves. And it is magical. And the School of Magic is... Sorry, I'm looking at the schools. Transmutation.
Ooh.
Which makes you think, from context clues of how you saw that it was made of metal, and you saw that it had specifically transformation magic on it, it gives you the idea that it might be some kind of magical construct. Which I think is very interesting. So going back to Sister. So you have Sister chase it. Are you going to do share senses? Meevil?
Yes?
Are you doing share senses?
Yes.
Okay, Slay. Sorry, I wanted confirmation before I went into detail. You kind of like slump, and like Ashan like has you. So that's another thing, Flynn. You see, in the middle of this, you notice that Motiva is slumped in Ashan's arms. As you send Sister out after this thing, and it follows it for a mile. And a mile is, you know, you're from Earth. The cities are huge. A mile is not very far in a city. But what you do notice is that it sort of goes more towards the outskirts of the city, and then it goes on this kind of circuit around the edge. And one thing that you notice before the empathy link clicks out is that this is not the only one. There are multiple of these things that it sort of passes by in its route that it's taking. You don't tend to see a ton of them, but you maybe see it pass maybe like 4 or 5, specifically around the edge as it follows the river and then goes up around the jungle, passing guards and the like, before your empathy link cuts out and Sister is too far away from you.
Motiva's eyes shoot open. She's like, damn it. And she looks at Flynn and says, what's the letter say?
Having a confirmation that the letter is not magic, Flynn will open it.
Awesome. So you have a little note, and it says, sorry, I keep rewording this, but I will send it in just 1 second.
It's okay.
Oh, okay, 1 second.
Whoop.
The bullet point. Stop it. There you go.
Rest of my home and share your sorrows are.
And there is an address. I'm not going to invent an address for this city, but you're given a location, basically.
Oh my god. Philip will read it out loud so that everyone knows.
Ashan
Motiva has rabies.
hmm.
2 rabies havers just being like, Motiva takes a second and she breathes and she says, Flynn, It is your call, what you want to do.
Flynn's gonna think
The
for a
most
second.
pained squeak as she says it.
I gotta read something I got. Okay. So here's the thing. Flynn would want to go, but with the citation, she would want to get within range of, like, this address, this place that they're going to, without actually going into it yet, and then she wants to spend 10 minutes to cast Augury.
Oh, that would be really fun. I think that's convincing enough for Nefei. Nefei is still like looking at the doorway where this thing ran out and like has this face like she's thinking.
We could also, if this is, I mean, assuming that's the creature is from this place, I assume someone of power or at least wealth is there. If there's a chance that this is a well-known place, then maybe Chamali might know about it? Or somebody else? We could ask around, see if anybody knows about it.
At the very least, those things are weird. And Nefei finally comes back from looking through the doorway and comes back to the group. And she kind of like crosses her arms and say, I didn't even know they had constructs. I've barely seen a lick of metal in this town.
It was
You
quite...
recognize it?
What'd you say, Mativa?
Motiva, do you recognize it? But Lysera, you go ahead and finish first.
Oh, Felina was just gonna say it was odd.
You see Nefei at your question kind of like scrunches up her face, and you feel like that's actually what she's trying to do. She is a crafter. She is a magical crafter specifically. She knows magic crafting. So the idea that this is like a magical construct thing, like she's trying so hard to like pick apart it, but she kind of just throws up her hands and says, no, not really. I suppose if this town's resources of that nature are going to things like this, then I guess it's not strange that we wouldn't see buildings or other items that look like that. But I don't often look at a thing and don't know what makes it tick, I guess.
The rabies is back in Motiva's eyes. And she just says, well, it would make sense if you wouldn't know what it is if we aren't dealing with a normal person.
Ashan's gonna speak up and say, do we even know how common magic is here? How common powerful magic is here? Is something that I find particularly interesting about the culture shock, and he uses finger quotes when you go from plane to plane, is the average magical ability of the average person on Arcavios is a lot different than on Zendikar, and could be a lot different here. Maybe there are super powerful clerics in the religious city, but I don't know enough about the people here to really judge, and there's not really a easy way to ask.
Or at least I'd like to check this place out and see if we can't get any more information.
I definitely think both of the NPCs agree with that.
Yeah, Motiva would agree with that as well.
Time to go look at augury.
Also, Abo, Motiva will call Sister through the empathy link to
Come home.
Yeah, come
Come
here.
on.
Oh yeah,
I'm scared.
definitely. I imagine whenever empathy link drops, I feel like Sister naturally is inclined to come back.
Mm-hmm. I lost my girl.
Oh my girl. Awesome. So you guys set off. Do you guys do anything before you go? Do you go right away?
Falun would be ready to go right away unless anybody else wanted to do something.
Yeah, no, Motiva's ready to go right away.
All right. You guys get your stuff together. You see Chamali goes to wave you out as you go out into the sort of like maybe like 1 p.m. sun. Very hot right now. Most definitely very hot. Very direct sunlight. But you guys start to walking, and it takes a couple of it takes a while. I want to say maybe it takes like 30 minutes to find this place. Not because like the address is necessarily bad, but it's like you have to like ask people how to find an address, you know? It's just like how that goes when you're in a city that's unfamiliar. So you get directions kind of like increasingly from like a couple different people until you kind of find the location. And it's in a sort of nice area of town. I wouldn't say it's necessarily like a rich or like opulent area of town, but like I think that it looks nice. It has a nice view from where it's at, sort of in the terraces. And I want to say if I had to put it in a place, it's kind of like in sort of like the center of like, not the center because that would be like where government buildings are. Kind of in like the outer rim of like the little bowl in between these big structures that are in the corners. All right, and you're gonna spend 10 minutes to cast augury?
Yep.
Slay, are you gonna just do that in the street?
Fair enough.
I mean, I was just gonna try and be like as out of the way as possible, but like,
Yeah, if you are willing to do so, you could go into like a little alleyway beside the house.
yeah.
Okay, Slay, if that helps. Not like I'm guiding you or anything, I just want to get an idea. If you're doing it like on the doorstep, in where people are walking, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Slay. All right. Spend that spell slot. And I have to think about this. Describe to me what you think Flynn's augury looks like. I would love that.
I feel like. Ooh. I feel like because most of the flavoring for her magic, particularly when it involves any kind of time or fate kind of shit,
Mm-hmm.
is with strings.
Okay.
So I like to imagine that, like, as they got closer to the house, she started, like, doing the little hand motions and is, like, trying to find the right string, so to speak, and that's what leads her to an alleyway.
Okay.
And she, like, finds the right one, and then she plucks it, and she, like, has her eyes closed and is keeping her ear out to, like, listen for, like, a tune.
You do that as you sort of pluck the string and you're hoping that it is tuned correctly. You're hoping that it leads you to some sort of epiphany, an idea of what the future could hold, what this strand of fate you're on leads to. 'Cause that's what it truly is. You're finding the right path, a sort of golden thread in the maze of the life you live, right? And you listen and you hear nothing. You do not feel like there is particularly good or bad results on this course of action.
Okay. I think Flynn will open her eyes and like look to the others and say, well, this spell doesn't think anything particularly good or bad will happen of this if we go in there. Though this is not a 100% accuracy kind of spell. There is a chance that that is not completely accurate. The fate and time and possibility, yada yada yada.
It's divination.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go.
Flynn is going to look to Ashana and Nefei to get their confirmation or opinions on going forward.
Ooh, okay. I think that Ashan is kind of, he looks like, and he would also verbalize this if pressed. He looks like he does not particularly mind either way what their course of action is, like whether they go or don't go. I think that Nefei, still looking a bit like this kind of like focused expression, not quite frustration, but maybe just before frustration, and kind of like goes to give like a look in your eye and like a nod. You can interpret that however you want.
Man.
Does it feel like to call the shots right now, Sarah?
Wild, crazy, who put me here? Flynn will start walking towards the front door.
Okay, you walk up to the door. Nothing happens. You're just in front of this sort of like nicely carved wooden door in a sort of like the house's architecture is still like similar to the architecture of the buildings around it. The sort of like pale yellowish eggshell like clay brick windows with some curtains.
I think. I feel like Flynn kind of like thinks for a second before like going back to the others. Did they follow her to the door?
Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. She's gonna like turn back around to them and say, Should the two of us stay outside or something in case something goes bad? I don't.
If something goes down and burn down this fucking house.
Fair enough. She's gonna knock.
You go to knock. And you have to wait just a little bit before like the door answers, but you kind of hear a voice go to yell out the like I'm coming or like I'll be right there. And something of note that you notice, Flynn, is that it is the same voice from earlier. But you would notice actually in this moment that it is accented a little differently than how it was when she was talking to you.
Oh.
I can't recreate that accent, so. But you see, relatively quickly, a door opens, and you see the same woman that you saw earlier. Dark skin, dark hair, and a ponytail. These sort of like big brown doe eyes. Wearing the same outfit that you saw. And she looks at your group, sees you, and like smiles. And a couple things happen very quickly. Because you guys hear a noise kind of behind you from Nefei as she makes like almost a sound of alarm. You hear the woman in front of you seemingly going to call out to like the inside the house and only can really make out the word dear before her eyes snap back at that noise, looks at Nefei and looks amused and is like, well, hello. And you just hear, if there's no responses, you just hear Nefei say, it's you.
Do you know each other?
And you see the woman you talked to earlier, presumably R, say, no, not quite. Your friend might know of me. Please, come in. This is not conversations for the street. You understand, right? Low profile?
Let's go. The rabies! But let's go like look to Nefei to be like, do we go? Is this an okay?
Do you think Motiva also waits for Nefei's signal, or what do you think Motiva's doing? I like to check just to make sure.
She looks like she has rabies. I know I keep saying it, but she looks like she has rabies. Her hair is just like flipping around, and she's just like looking wildly between Nefei and this woman. She's like, Nefei.
You see, in these couple seconds as you're kind of standing there, not only was there now like a loud noise, but this hasn't actually come up a lot in public, Motiva. You being able to control your hair like that is strange. As people are now kind of like slowing to like stare at you in this doorway and at Nefei in this doorway. And you see the woman, R, just kind of go to step aside a little bit and open the door. Again, looking almost amused, as Nefei looks increasingly annoyed. And she goes to curse, and says to both of you, well, all three of you technically because Ashan's here, come in or don't, but I have questions. And she's going to walk into the house. This is her way of basically saying if you're not comfortable coming in here, she won't blame you, but she isn't leaving.
Yeah. I mean, as long as Nefei is going in, Felin will go in.
Yeah, Motiva will go as well.
Awesome. Ashan doesn't go in until Motiva goes in. But you see that he's kind of like staying extremely close to you. Sorry to have to constantly mention how he's obsessed with you and really overprotective, but he is like always 2 inches away from you, scary dog vibes. You know what I mean? And he almost comes in last and like glares at the woman as she kind of goes to give him a smile and a wink, and then closes the door as she finally gets to finish her statement. And she says, darling, they're here. I'm not sure if you heard the commotion, but don't worry. And she goes to kind of like move through this house, and it's almost built like it has like this sort of like entryway that goes into like a den area, which is like kind of a living room, if you guys know what a den is or not. It's like a slightly different living room, basically. And you see that inside this house it's almost bizarre to look at. And the only way I can compare it is sort of like two styles smashed together. Because on one hand, you're seeing a lot of really simple decorations. You're seeing books lying around. You're seeing framed weaponry. You're seeing a very full but humble kitchen. But the part that is almost startling for you to see is that the rest of it is decorated with these sort of like brightly colored baubles and a style that you don't think fits here at all, because you see like iron and gold filigree on things. This sort of like intertwining of metal, decorating furniture, standalone pieces. There are like sketches on the wall as you're kind of led into this house. And you see that even though you all are kind of like on edge, she is almost not worried about that as she goes to like walk further into this sort of like living room area, assuming you'll follow.
Oh, 100%.
And you come in and you see that there's kind of like this conversation pit that's set into the ground with these sort of like, again, brightly colored textiles, huge cushions, these sort of like long, like cushioned benches instead of like traditional couches, and this table with a bunch of knickknacks on it. And Motiva, you're shocked as the thing that you notice the most as R goes to sit down. The one thing that you notice the most is that this table reminds you of a very specific point that you've actually recently experienced. Because you are immediately brought back to when you stepped foot in Jace's apartment. Because you see that there are coins on the table. Minted Boros silver. And you see R goes to just kind of pat the cushions and says, "Oh, be comfortable. It's not... I invited you here so that you could rest. So please come sit and we can have a conversation." Does that mean you're refusing to sit down?
I think Motiva like takes a second and she like is like flitting her hair around for a moment. I think Motiva just like gives up and she's gonna use pest form and she's gonna turn into a fox and she's gonna sit down.
You definitely can. Do you sit down on like the ground?
On the ground, on like the pillows. She's like still pacing. There's like a tap 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 tap.
I love the idea that you hop down onto one of the benches and you're just like tap 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 tapping. Ashawn, almost following your lead, goes to sit down on the bench you're walking on. Oh, no, he would do that. He would do that. He's feeling standoffish because you're feeling standoffish. He's gonna put his feet on the table. Flynn, what do you think you're doing?
I think Flynn is going to follow whatever Nefay is doing in this moment.
Awesome, because Nefay is making eye contact with this woman. Goes to step down, walk over to a bench, sit down, not exactly right next to her, but is just going to sit down at like a normal distance. And if you're following closely behind Nefay, you can do that in this moment. But the minute she sits down, she is going to start saying something. I can never tell if that's a yes or just a random affirmative. I'm silly.
Oh no, is both technically?
You know what? Fair enough. I'm gonna take it as that means that you did fall into Fae. Sorry, I just wanted
Yes.
to confirm. Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, I forget that perhaps just making random sounds into the fucking ether does not automatically communicate to people.
It's a good noise. I'm also just silly, but I will catalog this for the future. It's very good to know, legitimately. You do that, and Nefei sits down, and Nefei looks at this woman, and this woman looks at Nefei, because so far everybody else is very like, what is happening? Where are we at? Nefei looks almost like, I don't want to say Nefei looks pissed, because you've seen Nefei look pissed, but like, there is like a pissed-esque expression on her face as she kind of just is like glaring at this woman. And oh, I have to think of exactly how Nefei would say this. I didn't know that this was going to actually happen in this session, so this is really fun.
Do you want to change the music?
Oh, I should pause and change the music.
Ooh.
All right. Nefei is going to sit down and kind of almost instantly be like, I think her opening is, of course I didn't recognize it because it doesn't belong here. And you see R go to put up her hands and say, I'll have you know, I had a lot of local artisans help me when I started making more of them. Call it a cultural exchange, if you will. The exchange of information is not a bad thing, wouldn't you say? Tough crowd. I understand.
Sorry, I just I'm a bit lost. I don't have Who are you?
Well, most of my colleagues would call me R. My friends would call me Sahili.
I know you. You're a queer.
My wife will be here in just a moment. We didn't expect to see you so soon, actually.
How do you spell her name?
Yeah, Sahili. And she's gonna kind of like say a comment and like throw a little side eye over to Nefei and say, you know, I imagine that a lot of you are awful far from home. It's not as rare as you'd think. I will say it's very exciting to see a fellow Kaladeshi.
I feel like Flynn kind of like glances at the gang before looking to her and saying, "Are you also?"
Also what?
I feel like Flynn takes a second trying to think of how to phrase this in a way that isn't blatantly obvious because she's trying to like walk on like eggshells. It's like, do you like to walk?
Yes, I like to say that it's one of my my better hobbies. Not my most skilled hobby, I'll have you know, I am very. No, we just met. I shouldn't brag just yet. But if we can speak plainly, now I know that you're planeswalkers. That wasn't actually the reason I invited you here, but the more the merrier. Am I right?
Motiva's gonna pop back to a person and just point and say, Flynn, don't call yourself a walker.
But she is.
She is not. She's
Just
still an
because-
emperor.
Just because I can't walk yet.
Well, then you give people the assumption that you can walk with them.
Wait, a planeswalker that can't walk?
Well, there's a couple of those, so keep your mind open.
Really?
The spark hasn't gone off yet.
We are using an extreme amount of magic to get this to work.
That's fascinating. How do you know? If you haven't walked, how do you know you can?
Motiva just shrugs and says, "There's an experiment."
Ethical, I would hope.
No. Anyway.
Far be it me to
I
judge
feel like-
science.
I feel like Felin goes to speak up, but then she just closes her mouth and she realizes she can't say anything in response to that.
Well, to be polite, I won't pry, even though that's a very fascinating thing you said that I don't think very much makes sense. But I sincerely hope that one day, soon, you can also walk.
Thank you.
Can I get you some tea? Juice, maybe?
Oh, tea would be lovely.
Yeah.
Sean says no, but Nefei kind of goes to almost slouch onto the couch and goes to kind of nod and rub at her temples. And Saheeli is like, okay, I'll be right back. And hopefully by then I'll have backup. And she kind of makes a face as she walks away.
As soon as she's gone, Flynn's gonna lean over to Nefei and say, "So how do you know about her?"
Planeswalkers.
Well, I didn't
Well,
know that
yes,
there were any Kaladeshi planeswalkers, but I'm from Giraport. I keep up with it's a whole thing. There's events, there's fairs and vendors and the like, and craftsmen go, and it's a whole thing. But I recognize her from it. She makes machines, which isn't usually what. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to get into my opinions on what's being put in the fair these days. Anyways, I was just surprised. I know a Kaladeshi when I see one, even if they're not dressed like it. Yeah. Is Motiva gearing up to say something, or is she just vaguely going
Motiva kind of looks around and she says, okay. It's officially Shut the Fuck Up Friday. We don't give any more information about ourselves until we understand more about this situation.
All right, fair enough.
And I'm also talking about this guest that she keeps, this wife she keeps talking about. Because do you know her wife?
No, I
Mm,
I mostly just knew her face. I've maybe seen her accept an award. I've maybe seen her at the fair itself, but I don't know much
Okay.
about her. Don't worry, I'm beating myself up about it now too.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's Shut the Fuck Up Friday. We have given out as much information as is needed. Now, we wait for them to give out information.
Right as you go to say that, you see Sahili comes back carrying a little tray with some cups of warm chai, and she sets it down in front of everybody, and almost poignantly immediately starts asking you guys small talk questions about yourself.
Oh God.
I'm not gonna like go through the whole kit and caboodle if your thing is Shut the Fuck Up Friday and we're not answering any questions about ourselves. But just know that that's immediately happening. So think about if you would entertain conversation with Sahili.
If it's just small talk and does not start veering into like Strixhaven territory or anything like that, then Falin will.
Slay. It definitely starts. One of her first starting questions would be like, "Where are you from?" That sort of thing.
Oh, but now Falin is torn because Batir said Shut the Fuck Up Friday.
It's true. You have to figure out if you're gonna break it or not.
I think.
What will you do?
What do I do? I think she'll keep it relatively broad and just say that I'm from a plane called Exandria. You're from Kaladesh, yes?
Yes, one of Girapur's very brightest, I would say. I know that we're in a new company, so again, I won't brag, but well, if you're friends with a Kaladeshi, and if my eyes show me correctly, someone who's familiar with Aetherweave, then you might be a bit familiar with, we like to be very talkative about our accomplishments. And she kind of goes to like throw a smile over at Nefei, very charming. And Nefei just kind of goes to laugh and say, you know, if you meet one person from Girapur, you've practically met the entire population. And I think that it would be that kind of small talk. I will say, Ash, you should tell me if you think you're answering none of her questions. Like, are you engaging with her at all, or are you just listening?
I think Motiva would give the most unhelpful answer and say that she's from Ohio.
Ohio.
I love that. I feel like she kind of goes through this song and dance where she tries to ask a little bit of like what it's like or like that sort of thing. Like very light questions, but still questions you guys are hesitant to answer. But I think most of what the conversation gets stolen by is that Nefeh actually just starts talking about like Kaladesh and like the Inventors Fair and that sort of thing. And you would learn from that conversation. One second. Saheeli makes very specific things. So one second. Saheeli very specifically is an inventor who specializes in animated constructs. And that's something you just pick up on while Nefeh and Saheeli are talking.
Can Flynn ask her how long she has been in Ixalan?
That's a good question. I would love if they told me. Hold on. That would be cool information to know. Give me 1 second.
Magic timeline be like, it's just vibes.
It's
It's
vibes.
just vibes all the time. She would look at you and say, only a couple days really. Well, in this stint, you know, me and my wife, we end up traveling a bit, you see. But we decided to kind of touch down a little bit. You know, our time in Ixalan can be spent in a bunch of different places, but this is a nice and an easy place to stay at, you know. Everything you could ask for. Before that, though, we were you know, I tend to actually spend a lot of my time in Ravnica. Are any of you familiar?
What part?
I actually like to go to the Traveler's Notice Board, so I end up kind of staying around Tin Street. But I don't have a place to stay there necessarily. It's always usually to visit, so I stay in, you know, inns, bed and breakfasts, that sort of thing.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
I think it is very nice. I think it's such a big city, you know. You can't really like only stay in one part. I feel like the beauty of it is it's like when you pick up a rock and you see what's living underneath it, you know? Every time you go through a street in Ravnica, I feel like you notice something else. I'm not very good with analogies. I'm not the poet, my wife is.
What is the wife's name?
My wife? Not the wife.
It's a joke from where I'm from.
Ah, it's okay. A lot of humor gets lost in translation, honestly. Oh, there she is. Dear, come down and introduce yourself. I've been entertaining our guests. And you see this woman kind of come to walk in, kind of harried a little bit. It's been like a decent amount of time since you got here, but not any more than like 10-15 minutes. Realistically, the conversation is pretty fast paced. But you see that she's wearing an outfit that is also out of place, actually, because you actually see her in like trousers and like this sort of like cropped leather jacket almost thrown on over a button-down shirt. And you see most notable about her appearance actually is that she has brown hair in a braid. But the parts that frame her face are kind of cut pretty choppy. And what you assume is a very intricate hairstyle, but it's currently unstyled. And she sees all the people in her living room, and she goes, Well, welcome. I'm glad that you've already made yourselves at home. And she goes to kind of step down into the conversation pit. And she goes to like touch Sahili's shoulder, uh, very tenderly, but that's kind of like the only bit of affection that she shows right now. As she goes to sit down, and says, "Welcome to my home. I would love to get your names. Sahili was telling me a little bit about your plight. My name is Huatli."
You.
You.
Motiva just stands and says, "We've been looking for you."
Me?
You.
And then Sahili is like, her?
Yes.
You showed me a different woman.
No. Well, that's
They aren't a woman, but
Then how are you looking for my wife?
we were looking for your wife in hopes that she could help us find the person that we're looking for.
You see, Huatli doesn't actually know how to respond to this information, and you see that she takes like a second. Huatli has this very particular, like physicality to her, where she sits with like her back straight, and she seems very put together, but she takes like a couple beats too long to think of like what to say, and she instead goes to say, "Well, I'm here. We invited you here because I actually was interested in hearing about your situation, so I suppose we can call that very serendipitous." And she kind of gives like a smile.
Flynn's gonna look to Motiva, and she's like looking for permission to cancel Shut the Fuck Up Friday.
She looks to Valin and she like makes a grim face and she just says, "Okay, yes, fine. You win with your gay shit."
Flynn is going to cast Prestidigitation to get the image of Eleni up.
Awesome, you do that, and then Sahili goes to bring out the sketch that she made again and kind of lay it down on the table.
We're looking for my partner. Their name is Eleni.
Your partner?
She
They
does.
sparked and landed here.
You see something kind of happens in this moment, and it's very quick, but not imperceptible. As both Sahili and Huatli actually look notably saddened by this information. Sahili only just barely, but Huatli in particular has this sort of like look of surprise and sadness as you both notice that Sahili goes to kind of put her hand in Huatli's and squeeze it. As that kind of exchange happens, and Huatli says, I'm sorry to be missing a loved one like that is very disheartening. How did you want me to help?
To be honest, I don't know, I guess I didn't have any specifics. You know this plane better than we would anyways. any help you could provide, honestly.
You see Watley go to nod, and you see that she kind of goes to start thinking. And Sahili, who hasn't really said anything yet, kind of goes to give a bit of she still looks kind of sad, but she goes to kind of give a light laugh and says, well, planeswalkers beget planeswalkers. We tend to stick together, pull each other together, you know. Mativa, I'd like to check in with what you're thinking about and doing.
I think Motiva is trying to keep, like, kind of quiet. I think that she definitely wants Flynn to, like, get her feelings out, but she's, like, on top of, like, keeping track of what information is being put forth by both parties.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. She kind of nods and says, we have confirmation that they are here on this continent, on this plane. But that's about as far as it goes with that. Trying to scry into other planes is very difficult.
The last scribe we got, they were next to a river, but it hasn't been very helpful in trying to pin down an exact location.
Yes. Saying it's one of the worst planes to come to is incorrect, but it definitely does have a lot of wilderness and a lot of waterways. It's not impossible to find people, but when you're unfamiliar with the territory or even the region, it could be... There could be a lot of places that they could be at.
We got word of an increase of merfolk, and so one of my theories currently is that perhaps maybe they are with the merfolk.
That could be something, actually. I had only heard lightly of it. It seems to only be a problem with the fishermen and not necessarily our patrols. Trying to reach out to River Heralds could definitely, potentially, give you some more information. Ixalan is we are a place of change and upheaval, but unfortunately, generally, the driving factor that makes things change is usually the presence or intervention of planeswalkers. So in my experience, if something strange is happening, it's not invalid to think that there is somebody at the root of it. My people are not particularly in good graces with the River Heralds, unfortunately, even whenever I was... even with my position, I don't particularly have power with them, but Watley goes to look at you, Flynn, and says, I want to help you. I think if it were me, I wouldn't leave a single leaf unturned. So I cannot with good conscience turn you away. How much help I or Sahili will be is relative, I suppose. But you can count me amongst one of your allies.
Looks a little emo.
Don't worry, they also look
Fair.
emo.
Yeah. just knowing that there's people helping is honestly. I don't know, it lifts the weight some, I guess.
Huatley is gonna actually reach out and take your hands. And kind of give them a squeeze. I feel like really quickly, though, she becomes a little awkward with the gesture and lets go, but I think that it is a very nice gesture.
It's very sweet.
This is where you get to learn Huatley is really moe. She's really cute, she's really passionate, and she's really earnest, and she's also extremely awkward. I can potentially send a bit of my. I can potentially send out some of my pack if that would be something that helps you, but they would be mostly limited to land travel. They won't be able to swim or convene with any river heralds.
That would be of a great help still, honestly. There's... It is a current theory, but that doesn't mean it's guaranteed. Covering as much ground as we can would be for the best.
Of course. And you see that she goes to stand up, but she kind of hovers for a bit, and she says, sorry, quickly, is there any other information I should know? I'll go tell them so that they can start combing the area around Otepec.
She's going to nod, and I feel like she's going to kind of re-explain their appearance, but specifically noting the fact of, like, last we saw them, one of their eyes was, like, fucked up, and they were, like, a greenish color.
Okay. Like,
and would also preface that they might or might not be in pain still. We don't know.
right. Okay. I will take that into consideration. I have a question then. Since you are mentioning that they looked a little fucked up and they might be in pain, do you mention kind of vaguely that their appearance could be changing?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Huatley will take that into account, and will probably say outright that she will prioritize telling her pack to, like, look for a creature made of water, because that would make it a bit simpler for them to understand and look for. But I'll be back. Please, you're welcome to stay here as long as you like. Saheeli, take care of them. And she's like, of course, of course. And Huatley is going to very quickly leave the house, dressed in Ravnican clothes, which is what she was dressed in.
God.
You get the idea that Huatley is a very public planeswalker. And you see as soon as the door closes, Saheeli kind of sighs dreamily and looks at you guys and says, she talks to dinosaurs, you know.
Oh.
Okay. Okay, well, I guess you can talk to dinosaurs. That's an option people can have in their lives.
This might as well happen.
This might as well happen.
Don't worry, I don't know I don't understand it either, but it's very effective. It's why I made the automatons I made look like little raptors. You know, they originally were a gift. I didn't think that they would be used on such a large scale. I thought I would only make one or two, but they're a big hit with the cities.
I mean, I can see why.
They are very cute. Useful, but I like that they're cute.
It is a bonus.
they're they're very charming.
Thank you. I think that you're very charming when you actually want to talk to me.
Oh my god.
Mativa kind of like shrugs and says it's the Golgari.
Ah. You know, then you're acting very in character.
Thank you. You speak of Ravnican streets, but I only saw the sewers. Sounds very nice. Maybe one day I'll see it when we're not constantly busy.
You should definitely
Constantly.
check out the notice board. I think that you might like it. It's a very useful tool. And you can get pen pals that way.
I'll keep that in mind.
So what was working for a guild like? I never wanted to join one, truthfully.
Mativa kind of like stares and she says, I had to drag dead bodies across sewers and rob them.
That is incredibly in line with the things I have heard about the Golgari. I would say that that's fascinating, but not really.
She like can't look at anybody. It's like she like looks down and she's like, yeah, haha, haha. It's not the more glamorous of guilds.
I'm so sorry, I just realized, what were y'all's names?
Y'all?
All of your names.
Gotcha.
You caught me, the hidden southern.
The hidden southern.
Mativa nods her head and says, my name is Motivation.
My name is Flynn.
Ashan would introduce himself as Ashan, and then Nefei would be like, I'm Nefei Bandari of the Bandari family and Bandari Enterprises.
Get that bag.
You gotta get that bag. You gotta make your connections. And I feel like that kicks off another, like, oh, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, my family knows your family, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Catching up with the cousin. Finger
Yeah.
cousin.
Motiva, hold on. I'm going to look. It is only purple. Yeah. Motiva's gonna like cover her mouth and she's gonna look to Flynn and she's gonna use message and just be like, do you feel comfortable here?
Flynn will respond via message and say, yes. I think this is the most comfortable I've felt since being here, to be honest.
Motiva is going to not necessarily look at him, but Motiva is also going to message to Ashan with like the same thing where it's just like, do you feel comfortable?
Ooh, okay, that's a good question. I think Ashan's... I have to think about Ashan's feelings right now. That boy's hard to parse sometimes.
That boy is hard to parse sometimes.
I think the way that Ashan words it is that he doesn't feel like he's in a situation he can't get out of. And he mostly looks relatively unbothered. I don't want to say he looks fully relaxed if you like look at him. But most of his tension was when you were really keyed up. You know?
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Motiva looks a little bit more comfortable. I don't want to say that she's like giving more information out, but I
Mhm.
think that she's like open to conversation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Definitely. I think Sahili, get the feeling that Sahili notices that and is very like receptive to it. Um, I definitely think that she sits and talks with you for a bit, and would talk about herself a little bit. And this is where Motiva gets to learn, and Flynn also gets to learn about the Traveler's Notice Board, which is a place that I only learned about when researching Sahili Rai. And it is a place that is it has a like sigils warding it. It's a place in Ravnica. It's an actual notice board, like outside of an inn. But it's sigiled to never be affected by rain or weather, and it has all of these pieces of paper on there, and it's all notices left by planeswalkers traveling through that are like either asking questions or talking to other like planeswalkers. So it's kind of like a message board for planeswalkers because sending spells actually don't often work between planes.
Oh my god.
And it's sigiled so only planeswalkers can see it. And Sahili would proudly tell you that's how her and her wife got together. It's not how they met, it's how they got together.
No.
Oh my god.
Sahili and Watley's love story is really cute. Sarah, I'll tell you about it when we're out of call now that you like know them. They're really cute. Gay people.
Oh my god. Gay people.
Where's?
Queer people. It is about 2.5 hours into the game. I'm thinking about taking a little break to cook if we also want to think about other things we want to do in the session. I don't think it's a stretch to say that it's going to take a little bit of time for any of like Watley's information gathering to like potentially take like a while. So either a couple hours to a couple days. So during this break, while I make dinner, if we want to like think about what we want to do for the rest of this session or just plan for a bigger session next time, we can definitely talk about it. But this is basically the big thing I wanted to do this session.
Whee!
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother. I'm gonna pause.